Are you feeling pressure now? Because I think there's a petition that's currently on the line of 1.9 million people who want the election to be rerun. It's just over 2 million now. Do you feel pressure? Look, I remind myself that a lot of people didn't vote Labour in the last election. I'm not surprised that a lot of them are mourning the rerun. That's not how our system works. There will be a lot of people who didn't want to sit in the first place. So, look, what I focus on is the decisions that I have to make. Do you think this government has broken more promises than you? 100%, and they're loyal even to the point of forgetting. They didn't tell the elderly and pensioners. 10 million people. Have you ever felt like politicians don't listen? Well, 3 million people signed a petition, and Keir Starmer's response will make your blood boil. This video exposes the arrogance that is driving voters away from Labour. If you are fed up with the current state of politics, you may want to stick around. Here is a picture of him, 3 million people signing a petition, their voices united in concern. And Keir Starmer, he is acting as if he can't hear anything. It is a display of political tone deafness that has left many wondering if Labour has lost its way. Let's break it down. The petition calls for stronger measures to tackle knife crime and youth violence. This is a matter of life and death for communities across the UK. Parents are afraid to let their children out at night. Shopkeepers are installing security systems like there is no tomorrow. And 3 million people are saying enough is enough. But Starmer, radio silence. He seems to be playing a game of political hide and seek, hoping this affair will end soon. Meanwhile, the petition is gaining momentum. People on social media have shared their stories and called for action. The contrast is stark. The tide of public concern against Starmer's silence is breaking. It wasn't always like this. Remember when Labour actually listened to the people? When Gordon Brown faced a huge petition in 2007, he didn't ignore it. He came out and addressed the concerns. Yes, I love this job, not for its prestige, its titles and its ceremony, which I don't love at all. No, not really a Greater Britain. That's what leadership looks like. Even political pundits are scratching their heads at Starmer's approach. They say it's political suicide to ignore such a massive public outcry. It makes politicians seem out of touch with the concerns of ordinary people. So what does this silence mean for Labour's future? It doesn't look good. Every day Starmer is silent, he's alienating potential voters. People are starting to wonder who will listen if Labour doesn't listen to 3 million voices. When Starmer was finally cornered at PMQs about the petition, his response was as reassuring as a wet cracker. He made some vague remarks about taking crime seriously, but there was no real acknowledgement of the petition or the concerns of those 3 million people. It was a master class in saying nothing while pretending to say something. We are taking action on knife crime, including banning the sale of knives online, making them less available. But that's not all. Starmer's PMQ's non-response was just the beginning of a political mess that has left Labour supporters on edge and opponents smiling. This rollercoaster of political incompetence is far from over. Ever seen a politician do his rounds in slow motion? That's exactly what happened when Starmer finally addressed the 3 million strong petition at PMQs. His words were so deafening you'd think he was living on another planet. But the real question is, how much will this mistake cost Labour in the election? Picture the scene at PMQs. The air is thick with tension. Everyone is waiting to see how Starmer will handle this massive request. And then he opens his mouth. What comes out? A response as dismissive as if he was swatting away a fly rather than addressing the concerns of 3 million people. Starmer's actual words were a masterclass in how to alienate voters. He put the matter aside and dismissed it as if it were yesterday's news. It seems as if he has forgotten that these are not just signatures on a page but real people with real concerns about knife crime and youth violence. Political analysts are having a field day over this. They are pulling no punches in their criticism of Starmer's approach. Professor James Wilson from the LSE called it a shocking display of political tone deafness and warned that it could have serious repercussions for Labour's reputation. So how will this affect Labour's standing with voters? Well, it doesn't look good. Every word that came out of Starmer's mouth was like another nail in Labour's electoral coffin. People are starting to wonder if Labour won't listen to 3 million voices. Who will? And what exactly did Starmer say that got everyone so upset? Look, I remind myself that a lot of people didn't vote Labour in the last election. I don't know. I'm not surprised that a lot of them are mourning his re-election. Our system doesn't work that way. His tone was dismissive, his words were vague and his demeanor was screaming, I don't really care. He made some slurs about taking the crime seriously, but there was no real acknowledgement of the plea or the concerns behind it. It was like watching someone try to put out a fire with a water pistol. But here's the kicker. Starmer seemed completely oblivious to the damage he was doing. It's like he thought he could just allay the concerns of 3 million people and everything would be fine. Okay. News flash. Starmer, this is not right. And the backlash. This is just the beginning. Let's see how this plays out on the ground. Because while Starmer can live in his Westminster bubble, the rest of the country is none too happy with his small performance. Remember when politicians cared what voters thought? Starmer's dismissive comments about a 3 million signature petition have sparked outrage across the country. From social media outrage to farmers blocking roads, people are making their voices heard. Is this the moment Labour will lose the next election? As Starmer spoke, social media exploded. It was like watching a political catastrophe unfold in real time. A post went viral on X asking what kind of prime minister is telling his own citizens to leave the country. The post has received over 450,000 views. People are angry and they're not backing down. But it's more than just online anger. In Dover, about 100 farmers have staged a protest, blocking roads with their tractors. These are not troublemakers. These are hard-working people who feel betrayed by Labour. This fits into a bigger picture of Labour losing touch with its base. Working-class voters who have supported Labour for generations feel left behind and neglected. We have about 400 acres of land, which my grandfather and my father bought. Well, grandfather came down in 1928, bought some land, my father added to it. So we are farming on land that my grandfather farmed, my father farmed. That is an inherited investment of about £24,000. So it has now passed from grandfather to my father and now to my brother and myself. Starmer's attitude towards this petition is just another example of a party that is more interested in Westminster games than real issues. The polls are starting to show this growing discontent. Labour's support is slipping and it's not hard to see why. Voters are looking at Starmer's leadership and wondering whether it really is the best Labour can offer. It's about a pattern of behaviour that is making people question whether Labour still stands for them. Could this be a turning point for Labour's electoral prospects? It's starting to look that way. Every time Starmer speaks, he seems to alienate more voters. People are angry, frustrated and looking for alternatives. If Labour can't connect with voters on the issues they care about, how can they hope to win an election? The answer to Starmer's dismissive behavior is clear. People don't. They want to be heard, to be taken seriously, and they're not afraid to make a noise about it. Starmer thinks he can pull off 3 million signatures, but he's about to learn a hard lesson in political reality. And it's not just average voters who are worried. The backlash is spreading in unexpected places. Who else is willing to give Starmer a piece of their mind? Well, it seems the internal strife within the Labour Party is reaching its peak. MPs are starting to speak out against Starmer's leadership and it's not pretty. This could spell serious trouble for Labour's prospects in the upcoming election. A rebellion within the party is gaining momentum. MPs who have so far remained silent are voicing their concerns and are not holding back when it comes to criticising Starmer. Labour MP Tahir Ali has been particularly vocal. He is calling out Starmer for what he sees as a lack of action on hate crime legislation and the party's stance on international conflicts. Ali's comments highlight growing concerns among MPs that Labour is losing touch with key voter demographics. But Ali is not alone in his frustration. Other Labour MPs are joining the chorus of dissent. Some are questioning Starmer's economic policies, arguing that they do not go far enough to address income inequality. Others are criticizing his handling of the party's internal disputes, suggesting he is alienating key sections of Labour's base. The backlash over Starmer's response to the 3M petition has made matters worse. Now there are calls from within the party for Starmer to reconsider his position or even resign. When your own team is calling for your resignation, you know you're in trouble. Labour MPs are worried that Starmer is damaging the party's electoral prospects. It seems, one anonymous MP told me, that he is trying to win over Tory voters by forgetting our core supporters. We can't win elections like this. This internal conflict is a disaster for Labour's electoral prospects. How can they convince voters that they're ready to govern when they can't even agree among themselves? It's like trying to run a marathon by tying their shoelaces together. Starmer's repeated rejection of public opinion is becoming a pattern and is not going unnoticed. MPs are starting to question whether he is the right person to lead Labour at the next election. After all, a leader who cannot listen to the public, or his own party, can struggle to lead the country effectively. As the pressure mounts on Starmer, you have to wonder, can he turn this around or is his leadership already on borrowed time? Labour needs to address these internal issues quickly if they want any shot at winning the next election. The situation reveals a deeper problem in Labour's relationship with voters. The party seems to be struggling to balance its traditional base with its efforts to appeal to a wider electorate. It's a tough tightrope to walk, and right now Starmer seems to be losing his balance. Remember when Labour used to be the voice of the people? Well, things have changed, and Starmer's recent blunder with the 3 million strong petition is just part of a bigger problem. Let's see what's really going on here. Starmer's rejection of this big request is not a one-off. It's part of a pattern we're seeing more and more of. Take his recent renege on his promise not to raise taxes, as the Chancellor did. No tax increases for working people. And I will spell it out. No income tax, no national insurance, no VAT. I do not want to raise taxes on working people. No raising taxes on working people. During Prime Minister's questions, Starmer could not make the same commitment. He left many of us wondering what Labour's plan for the economy really is. And it gets worse. The Chagos Islands deal is another mess Starmer has gotten himself into. He has handled it so badly that people are warning of utter disgrace if it falls through. The new Mauritian government is not happy, and the incoming Trump administration is raising eyebrows. It is clear that Starmer is out of touch with what the people think. Political pundits are starting to sense this too. They're saying that Starmer is always reacting, never leading. Instead of setting the agenda, he is always playing catch-up. It's no wonder people think Labour has lost touch with what voters actually care about. This disconnect is really disrupting Labour's strategy and messaging. They can't seem to find a clear voice on the issues that matter. One minute they're trying to appeal to working-class voters, the next they're chasing middle-class suburbanites. It's all over the place. So what does this mean for Labour's prospects at the next election? It's not looking good, that's for sure. Every time Starmer misreads what people want, he's alienating voters. People are starting to ask how we can trust Labour to run the country if it can no longer understand our concerns. Starmer's silence on this massive appeal isn't just about one issue, it reveals a bigger issue. Labour seems to have lost touch with the people it's supposed to represent. They're so busy playing the political game in Westminster that they've forgotten to listen to the rest of us. But while Labour is floundering, other parties are waking up. They're seeing Starmer's mistakes and they're ready to take advantage. The question is, who will benefit most from Labour's mess? Well, Starmer is really in the hot seat and his opponents are having a field day. The Tories are jumping on the bandwagon, but are they just trying to score easy points? Or is this the start of a major shift in politics? Kemi Badenoch, a key player in the Conservative Party, is all out. She is telling everyone that this petition mess is just the beginning of Labour's troubles and that they may be onto something. People are becoming increasingly frustrated with the Labour leadership, and it is becoming clear. Badenoch is practically bragging about how the public is returning to the Tories. But there is more to it than just point scoring. The Conservatives are playing a clever game here. They're using Starmer's silence on the petitions to keep Labour completely out of touch with regular citizens. It's a tactic that worked well in the last election, and they're hoping it will work again. And they're not stopping there. Tory MPs are using this whole situation to attack Labour's economic plans. They're telling anyone who will listen that Starmer and his team can't be trusted with the country's finances. This policy won't raise any money. So in a year's time, if they haven't done a U-turn, it will be glaringly obvious, and then they'll have to look again. But if they know they're going to be very unpopular because there's an opposition that's going to do something different, that can change things. And we're going to do things differently. We're going to turn this around. It's not good policy. It's cruel, it's unfair, and it will destroy farming as we know it in this country. It seems they've been given a golden opportunity to criticize everything Labour does. Badenoch is really going after Labour's budget plans. She's bringing up how big UK businesses are worried about potential tax increases. It's a double whammy, making Starmer look clueless, while also pushing the idea that Labour will screw up the economy. The whole thing is giving the Conservatives a chance to fine-tune their message for the next election. Now they're all about accountability, telling voters that they're the ones who actually listen. It's smart, especially when you consider all those people feeling frustrated by Starmer's brush-off. The opposition's response to all this could be a real turning point. People are starting to wonder if Starmer's silence on the petition is a sign of bigger problems. And it's the kind of doubt that could really cause trouble when it comes time to vote. So, what's next? The media certainly won't let this story die anytime soon. They've got their teeth in it, and they're not letting it go. The big question is, how will Labour handle all this pressure? Because right now it seems like they're being criticized from all sides. 30 million signatures, and now, a media explosion that makes Starmer's approach look like a master class in political self-destruction. This firestorm threatens to burn down Labour's entire house. How bad is it, really? Let's dive into the carnage. The media has gone into full attack mode, and Starmer is feeling the heat from all sides. The Independent pulled no punches, calling it a complete humiliation of the Labour leader. It's like watching a political car crash in slow motion. The whole Labour Party is sinking into the mud. Those headlines, they're brutal. An editorial in The Independent really twisted the knife, saying that Starmer's refusal to acknowledge the petition shows he's out of touch with voters. Ouch. That's the kind of thing that sticks in voters' minds. And these sentiments are echoed across the media landscape. But words are one thing, pictures are another. Have you seen the political cartoons? A picture is doing the rounds on social media, showing Starmer with large earplugs. It's a visual gut punch, driving home the idea that he is deliberately ignoring the public. The images are going viral, and each share is another blow to Labour's reputation. Social media is a bloodbath. One post that really hits the nail on the head asks, what kind of Prime Minister tells his own citizens to leave? It has received more than 450,000 views. People are angry, and they're not afraid to show it. So what does all this mean for Labour? The pundits aren't painting a pretty picture. Political analysts are warning that this media storm could seriously damage Labour's public image. It's about reinforcing a narrative that Labour has lost touch with ordinary voters. It's the kind of reputation that could sink the party's electoral prospects.